was only a few devotees, but they were living up there trying to grow everything themselves. I know Parmananda and Satyabhama, they moved there real early. Of course, Harigriva, Kirtanananda, Prajumna, Vamanadev, they were living there. And at first it didn't have electricity, and Srila Prabhupada said that he needed electricity so he could use his dictaphone, so he could still translate. So they got electricity over there just for that reason, so that Srila Prabhupada could use his dictaphone, and before that they didn't. And of course there's a real nice description of the first time Srila Prabhupada came in the Hare Krishna Explosion by Harigriva. He wrote that book, the Hare Krishna Explosion. And there's a whole chapter called Paramahansa in the Hills, and that's when Srila Prabhupada first came up there in 1969. And then New Vrindavan started to branch out. They bought Madhavan, which was on the main road. One of the main thing is that you had to walk up there because it was inaccessible. So then they got Madhavan, and then after that they got Bahulaban. So they had those 3 farms, and those were the 3 farms for a few years. And the main emphasis kind of moved to Bahulaban. They brought Radha Chandra was installed up at Old Vrindavan in 1971 for Janmashtami 71. I wasn't there at the festival. I was in Boston, but some people from Boston went there for Janmashtami in 71. And Radha Chandra was brought down to Bahulaban shortly before Srila Prabhupada came in 1972 for the Bhagavad Dharma discourses. And at that time, the main farm was Bahulaban, but they still had Vrindavan and a few householders, and they made it like a brahmacharini ashram up there. So the single Matajis were living up there, along with a few householder men. Ambarish was one of the householder men. I believe Marari Gupta, and even Radhanath Maharaj at one point, he lived up there. Before it was, the Brahmacharya ashram. But then it was in the fall of 73, that it became the Brahmacharya ashram. And so all the men moved up there. And that was like the biggest population in New Vrindavan at that time was brahmacharis. So they all moved up to Vrindavan. I don't know if there was like 20 or 25. And I can remember I was the head pujari. Param Brahma was the temple president. Radhanath Maharaj was in charge of the cows. But we used to just go up there for evening program at night, sleep in our little cabins, and go for the morning program during the morning, and then we would leave early, usually like at the morning program, and our prasadam was over, I think at 7:30 in the morning. We had a 3 o'clock Mangal Arati, a kind of condensed program, because we could chant japa while we were walking. And there was a few devotees that would stay up there all the time, and they started to do gardening up there, and we started to plant a bunch of fruit trees also. I know most of them died, the fruit trees. There was this one devotee, Gatravan, who was digging these big holes and planting fruit trees. But it was we were never like self-sufficient up there. We always were bringing buying some things from the outside and carrying it up the road. So it was never fully self-sufficient. And I didn't work up there much. I was always, either working at the palace or, the new barn and the Prasadam hall, the marble shop. I was usually working in construction at that time. So I would just sleep up there and have the morning program up there. Then I would go to work and then come back. But you asked me about what the kind of the daily life was like, and we would get up there. We'd try to get up there just in enough time so that we could take a shower and be for Sundar Artik at 7. And they would have, the Sundar Artik until 7:30. Then they would have a Bhagavad Gita class. And then we would have some prasadam. Usually it was hot milk and popcorn. That was what we would have at night. And so they'd make a big thing of popcorn and lots of hot milk. And we would have that, and most of the time somebody would be reading from Krishna book while we were taking prasadam. And then we would go to bed. And we would wake up, I think it was my mind a little bit fuzzy, but I think most of us would wake up at 2:30, and the Mangal Artik was at 3. And it'd be the Mangal Artik, Tulsi Puj, Guru Puj, Bhagavatam class. It's kind of like all in a row. And Mangal Artik might have been at 3:30, but mostly we would chant some rounds before Mangal Artik. And the bathhouse was, in the temple itself, the old, where the temple is now, the old farmhouse. Yeah, that was the bathhouse downstairs.
So you came from your cabin over here?
Yeah, we'd run from our cabin over to there, and that's also was the only water in the whole place. So that's where we would do our laundry and other things. And there was a little black hose that came through the well, and we'd fill up pickle barrels, and we'd have gallon milk jugs with a big hole cut out so we could scoop water and pour it over our heads. And that's how we used to take our baths. And it got very cold in the winter. But sometimes, there'd be little ice. You have to break the ice and throw the water over you. And then we just wrap our dhoti around us and go upstairs usually and put it on. Upstairs, the room where Srila Prabhupada stayed, that was the prasadam room. And also there were a few devotees would sleep there.
You're talking about the attic?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the prasadam room, and some devotees would sleep there. There's one devotee, Tapanacharya, I know he lived up there for a while. He was an assistant cook, and he was also there because there were people that would collect firewood.
Tapanacharya?
Tapanacharya. He lives close by, actually. He drives a truck, so he doesn't come out too much. He would go out and collect wood with oxen, and they would bring the wood in and cut it up and stack it so that you could keep the deities warm. There was right where that fireplace is. They had a wood stove, and they would keep it warm. And also, all the cooking was done on wood. So all the cooking for the deities they would do on wood. And
the cooking was downstairs?
Yeah, in the kitchen, yeah.
In the basement?
Yeah, in the basement. One side was the bathhouse, the other side was the kitchen. And one like real beautiful highlight for me is for, I don't know, at least a year and a half or so. Every Sunday, I would help cook the Sunday feast up there. And usually on Sundays, everybody would go to Bahulaban because it was like the main festival for, there was Vrindavan, Madhaban. We had started the palace, which we called Guruban at first. And everybody would go to Bahulaban, Radha Vrindavan Chandra, and they'd have a big feast there. But up at Vrindavan, because we had installed deities, Radha Vrindavan Nath, also Gauranatai and Jagannath, we had to have 6 offerings a day. And every Sunday, they would also get a feast. So Gosta Vihari, Radhanath Maharaj, and myself, we used to, on Sundays, we used to stay up there. I considered it like a treat. And me and Gosta Vihari and I would be the main cooking of the feast. And Radhanath Maharaj was the pujari, taking care of the deities. He was also milking the cows, but he would also cook. And of course, he was very expert at cooking the sandesh, and the burfi, and other things. And so every Sunday we would have cook a big feast, and then we'd be cleaning everything. Radhanath Maharaj would come in from milking the cows, take a shower, go up, do the artik, and then we would bring it all up to the prasadam room and we would have a big feast together. So that was a really, really sweet time for me to not have to, be working construction someplace else, but actually stay in Vrindavan and, all morning cook a nice feast for Radha Vrindavan Nath and then get the remnants. And of course, Radhanath Maharaj was very expert at telling stories. He was just a brahmachari at the time, but his association and the stories he told were very nice. A lot of them are in his book now.
Yeah.
But back then, he wasn't supposed to talk about it. Kirtananda told him not to talk about his time in India. But we could usually get him to tell us some things. They had, in the back of the temple room, they have the windows. There was a little square there which they had a flower garden.
Inside?
Outside.
Outside.
And they had a nice plot of flowers, or all sorts of different colored flowers. I remember they had a lot of zinnias and marigolds. And those were the flowers for the deities, their garlands and for offerings. But I don't know. What else would you like to know about it?
How, for instance, tell me more about the water situation. What do you know about the water situation?
Sometimes, in the summer when it was warm, we would go down to Keshigat to take our showers, which is a little waterfall. As the creek goes in the valley, there's a little waterfall called Keshigat. And it's also a place, there's like a deposit of clay, gray clay, that's where we would get our tilak. Everybody in New Vrindavan had this kind of gray colored tilak from the natural clay that was there. And even when we first started doing sculpting and making ornaments for the palace and things, we got the clay from Keshigat, and we were using that clay from there. But it was it's a very steep, hard walk, and so it was easier to get the water from the bathhouse. I don't know exactly when they put a pump in, but they had a pump, and then the pipe was buried coming over to the house, so it wouldn't freeze in the winter. And it's a good well, it gave a lot of water. It didn't used to go dry.
The well
that's there now.
That's there now.
Yeah, the one, it's like all rock line, goes down.
Where is that well? exactly?
Just out from the house.
Out from
Oh yeah, you were walking over. You might not have come up, and we went over and we looked at it.
Okay.
It has a little metal plate on it now,
Mm-hmm.
but it's only like 20 feet from the house, kind of off the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a good well there.
Tell me more about the oxen.
There was a barn not too far from where the temple is. It got tore down, but they had cows that they would milk, and they would keep a team of oxen, with two of them with a yoke.
Mm-hmm.
And because the hills are kind of steep, it was tractors and things couldn't work there. So the oxen, though, they would put a chain around the log and they would pull it out of the woods. And usually pull it up by the temple, and then they would cut it up there. The oxen were mostly used for firewood, to bring in firewood. It might have done a little bit of plowing, but I wasn't involved so much with that. But they had a few, I don't know how many, 4 teams of oxen at one time. Plus they had 3 teams of horses. They were doing plowing with the horses and cutting the hay and harvesting the corn.
And where did those horses stay?
The horses had the horse barn at Bahulaban.
Uh-huh.
It was on the other side of the road from Bahulaban where the creek is. They had a horse barn down there. And there was, they had a little barn at Madhaban. They also stayed there sometimes.
And the oxen?
Same.
Same.
Yeah.
So actually one pair stood up there and the other ones
Were down. Most of them were at Bahulaban.
were they also used for transportation?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Like they had
Not so often.
they would
I mean,
pull-
at one time they had a stagecoach that was pulled by horses, and
Mhm.
that would bring people up to Vrindavan. I can't remember how many people it would hold, but it was used for a short time, and not so much early in New Vrindavan. It was a little bit later, and they also bought some Amish buggies that horses would pull. But when I first came here, they used more horses and oxen, and they had one old tractor. But at a certain point, I can remember, Kirtanananda made a decision that he wanted to, even though Srila Prabhupada said to be self-sufficient and not so modernized, he wanted to build fast. So they decided to get tractors and bulldozers and things like that, just so it would speed up the building of New Vrindavan, and that kind of more the agriculture and the self-sufficiency was put on the back burner at that time. So once they started getting tractors, and so they would be plowing the fields and planting with tractors and things, they got away from the horse. And Varshana Maharaj was in charge of the horses, training the horses, and taking care of them. But then
he also built that roundabout, isn't it?
Well, he didn't build. He flattened everything with a bulldozer, but another construction crew, because it's poured concrete, big circle.
That was for the horses, wasn't it?
It was going to be for horses, yeah. It never got finished, just the foundations poured.
Was it used for anything?
No.
Okay. How about these ponds? You can see ponds on the way up.
That pond, Varshana built it when he built the road, because the road that we drive on now didn't used to be there. There was only the one road from Bahulaban, the Agasura Road. even, where the dam and stuff, that's all fairly new, that road. Before, the only thing was from Bahulaban, or from where the barn is now, there's a little road that goes up there. Have you been that road?
I don't think so. No.
It's nice. And actually, there's a little kind of a flat area before you start going up the hill that New Vrindavan owns. Every year they bring the cows from the barn down to Bahulaban. They use that old road. They herd the cows up and down there. But that was the only way to get up there. And there was down by the old pig pen, there was a little pond still there. There was just a small pond that was there.
Had the ponds any function?
Just for water, for bathing gats and agricultural. You could use them. Mm-hmm. And I guess it was one of Srila Prabhupada's instructions that make some ponds. And that was one of the things he said. But it was just on the when he visited there in 1976. It was Srila Prabhupada was staying at Sankirtan's house, and Radhanath Maharaj came over for an evening darshan, and he had a picture of Radha Vrindavan and he put it on Prabhupada's table. And Srila Prabhupada was looking at the picture for a long time. And finally he said, "Where are these deities?" And Kirtana said, "Oh, they're over at the original Vrindavan farm." And so Srila Prabhupada said, "So you will take me there?" And Kirtana said, "Well, the road is not very nice. It'd be a rough drive. I don't think it'd be good for you." And Srila Prabhupada said, no, you must take me. So he said, okay. And so he arranged it for the next day that he would go up there for his morning walk in the morning program. So, where the white schoolhouse is at Bahulaban? It used to be my sculpture studio also. But that's where the Agasura Road starts. So they had this old big pickup truck, 4-wheel drive, and Srila Prabhupada sat in the front seat and Kirtanananda was driving, and so Srila Prabhupada got into the truck there by the old schoolhouse, and then they drove real slowly on the road, and as devotees we were running alongside the truck, just have Srila Prabhupada's association. And drove all the way up to almost where Kirtanananda's house is now. But the house wasn't there. And then Srila Prabhupada got out to take his morning walk. And it's the area which we call the horseshoe because it's just, the big kind of curve. And as he was walking, he wasn't saying much, and there's some really nice pictures of it. But at one time, there was a calf came down in front of Srila Prabhupada, and he put his cane in the ground and he stopped. And he said, "How old is that calf?" And because I was right next to him at that time, I heard him say, "How old is that calf?" I was looking around to see if there was somebody who would know how old the calf was, but none of the cowherd boys were there. So I looked at the calf just to see if I could figure out how old it was. But it was just, complete speculation. But I could see that, it was a heifer, a female, and the milk bag hadn't dropped down, hadn't developed yet. So I said, "Oh, it's a very young Srila Prabhupada. The milk bag hasn't developed." And Srila Prabhupada looked at me and he said, "I know that." And so I was feeling like a little depressed because I thought, I wanted to serve Srila Prabhupada by answering his question like that. He asked a question, but I didn't know the answer. I was feeling like depressed, anyways, Prabhupada, continued the walk, and I'll tell in a minute. There's some really nice pastimes up there that he had at the Vrindavan temple. But the very next day, when he was at Bahulaban, he would give the morning program, and after his class, he would go out to his car. And this time, I believe he went to the marble shop just to look at the marble shop. They showed him the marble shop. And then when he came back to his car, somebody opened the door for him, but he didn't get in. He was looking over the top of the car to the field across the road. And then he had this little smile, and he looked at me and he said, "What's growing over there?" And I happened to know that they had planted mung beans. So I said, "Oh, those are mung beans, Srila Prabhupada." And he said, "Oh, thank you very much." And then he got in the car. And I was ecstatic, I couldn't believe it that he gave me another chance. He asked me another question, and this time I knew the answer. But it was like, he could read my mind, that I had wanted to serve him that way, and he gave me another chance. And I just, for days, I couldn't believe it. It was such a perfect thing that really, made me enthusiastic to serve him. But anyways, when he came to the temple, Radha Vrindavan Nath, there's a picture of Prabhupada standing in front of the deities. And then he paid his dandavats up there in front of the deities, and he went and sat on a Vyasasan. And we had a Guru Puj, and he gave a Bhagavatam class. I believe it's recorded. You could probably find that class. I don't remember right now things that he said during the class. I remember it was a fairly short class. And usually at Bahulaban, after class, he would hand out cookies. The little children would go up first, then the Matajis, then the men, and we would all get a cookie from Srila Prabhupada's hand. But because it was way up to Vrindavan, nobody brought any cookies. So Radhanath Maharaj was thinking, there's no cookies. Prabhupada likes to give out prasadam, and he had the plate of maha from the deities, but it was, like sabji and, on the deities' plate. So Radhanath said, well, maybe we should just offer this to Srila Prabhupada. And he asked one devotee, and he said, no, don't do that. But he thought he should ask another one, so he asked Prajumna, and Prajumna said, yeah, you should offer Prabhupada prasad. So he had the deity's plate, with the deity's spoon and everything, and they offered it to Srila Prabhupada. And sitting on the Vyasasan, he, tasted every prep. And he was, eating the sabji, with a spoon, and then he would hand it out to people. Everybody would, get some prasadam. And when the bowl was empty, he handed out the bowl. And people got the bowl, and they were thinking, "Oh, Prabhupada gave me this bowl." And but Radhanath Maharaj said he had a hard time getting the deity's bowls back. People thought, "Oh, Prabhupada gave me this bowl," but they needed it for the deities. And Srila Prabhupada was, sitting on the Vyasasan, and I was on his right, just a couple of devotees in, but pretty close. And at one point, he had two big glubjamans, very big ones. And he picked up the glubjaman, and he looked at it, it was a big golden glubjaman, and everybody was cheering, Prabhupada. And he took a big bite, and it squirted over all the devotees in the front, and then he gave it out. And then he took the other one, and the same thing, people were going, Srila Prabhupada, they're having like a little kirtan. And he bit into it again, and it squirted all, onto the devotees. And then he gave it out. And it was very, very wonderful, time to see Srila Prabhupada taking his prasad there, sitting on the Vyasasan and passing it out to devotees. Everybody, got a little bit from his hand. And then he walked out the temple, and they had the truck turned around, and he went back in the truck, and we also ran, next to the the truck as it slowly drove all the way down to Bahulaban. That was in 1976. That was Srila Prabhupada's time up there.
Thank you very much.